You don't have to be familiar with the furry fandom for long to know that this community is built around art. I'd even go as far as to say that the artists in the furry fandom are the lifeblood of the community. Art is so important for this fandom because it lets the community visualize the otherwise nebulous concept of anthropomorphic animals. This type of art is how a lot of people are introduced to the fandom in the first place, and is certainly what keeps a lot of them here as well. Now, one of the cool things about art in the furry fandom in particular is that there are many different kinds of art that you can get. There's the classic portrait or full body pieces, and there's art like YCHs where you get to put your character in a predetermined scene. And there's even more purpose-built art like stickers, allowing you to use depictions of your character as reactions to messages. And all of which are great to have, but there's one specific piece of art that stands out from the rest in terms of importance, at least to me anyway. And that piece of art is the furry badge. They might not seem like a lot, but badges have so much practical use in the furry fandom that they end up being one of the most important pieces of art that you can get, and one that I personally advise you to get as soon as you can. But what is it exactly that makes these badges so special? Well, let's talk about it. First, let's actually define what furry badges are. Furry or fursona badges are specific pieces of art of a fursona that are designed to be printed out and worn. They typically consist of a drawn image of a fursona from the shoulders up, with the name of the character clearly visible near the bust, and are meant to be printed out, laminated, and attached to something like a lanyard to be worn around the neck. In fact, instead of me just telling you about these things, why don't I show you mine? Here, 1 second. Alright, here are my badges. We had to flip the image so you could read the name, but as you can see, they show mostly the head and shoulders and can be worn around the neck with these lanyards. I'm actually not going to put them on because they'll be too low and out of frame, but I'll put them here for right now. Oh, this is harder than it looks. Oh, my paws are so big. There we go. And yeah, that's all there really is to it. Their beauty is really in their simplicity, and they are super easy to get. It's not hard to find artists who will make a fursuit badge for you either online or in person at a place like a furry convention. In fact, for newer furs, because of their ease of obtainability and simplicity, I personally recommend that this should be the first piece of art that you commission after your ref sheet, which might actually seem a bit contradictory at first due to their stated simplicity. At the end of the day, they are just a bust of your Sona with your name next to it, and that's it, right? Why not go for something a little bit more grand for your first piece of art, like a nice full body piece, or get some stickers for your messaging apps? It's a good question to ask, and while a full body piece and stickers are awesome in their own right, what really makes furry badges so important has to do with their primary use case. Let's take another look at these things. Imagine I'm wearing this around my neck or have it visibly somewhere in front of me. What does this remind you of? Especially if you ignore the art, doesn't this kind of look like a name tag? If you're seeing the similarity, then you're on the right track here. Furry badges are essentially the name tags for furries in the fandom. Now, why is that important? Well, it really has to do with our fursonas. In a vast majority of cases, furries use a special name for their fursonas, one that's different from their real name. And sometimes these names can be a bit complicated and hard to remember. So when going out to places where we meet other furries, say a furry convention or a local fur meet, we want to know the names of the other furries we're meeting, and these furry name tags allow us to do so. And it sounds simple, but addressing each other by name is really important to us, especially in a social community like the furry fandom. Studies have shown that when we call each other by the name we want to go by, it increases our mental retention of both the person we're talking to and what we're talking about. It also helps break down social barriers and makes everyone a lot more approachable overall. That's why we sometimes wear name tags for normal, real-life interactions. This isn't some furry-specific revelation. Now, even that being said, there definitely is a furry side to this. These badges not only tell people what our furry names are, but what our fursonas look like as well. We've harped on this idea before, but fursonas are how individual people identify themselves in the furry fandom. So when we meet another furry in person, we can now put both a name and a character design to a face, which helps us remember who they are, especially if we follow up with any conversation online. This is why they're so important for pretty much every furry who has a fursona to get, and again, it helps that they're relatively accessible to get as well. When I was looking into this, another name for these things that I saw come up from time to time was fursuit badges, alluding to the idea that these were to help identify the name of a certain fursuit. And while that's not entirely incorrect, I really don't like calling these fursuit badges, since they're not just for people with fursuits, they're for everyone who wants to let other people know what their name and persona looks like. Now, what if, for whatever reason, you are not in a position to go out and meet other furries in person, and all your furry communication happens online? Doesn't that render getting a furry badge useless? Actually, no, not at all. At the end of the day, badges are still a piece of art, which means, especially nowadays, they are drawn in some digital format. This means you can get the file of the art for your badge and still use it for its intended purpose, just online. Many furries start out using their badge as their main online profile picture, which accomplishes the exact same thing as wearing a physical one. This is actually the main reason why I strongly recommend it as your first piece of art that new furries get. The utility that you can get out of badges is immediately apparent. You can use it as your online profile picture, and when you get the chance to meet other furries in person, print that same piece of art out and use it as your furry name tag. So after all of that, I think it's safe to say that I'm a big fan of furry badges. Though it's not the art that I'm obsessed with, even though I'm particularly obsessed with this one in particular. Shout out to Crow Parade. But for me, it's the fact that even as a new furry, you can get a piece of art and have it be used for so many different aspects of being a member of this fandom. They can act as your persona's name tag and allow you to be identifiable and recognizable when meeting other furries in person. But if that's not something that's accessible to you yet, you can still use them like any other piece of art, including all of your online name tags like profile pictures. Also, just getting art of your persona's face is a lot of fun. It's the most dynamic part of your persona's design, and seeing how different artists interpret how you look is always a treat to get. All in all, of all the different kinds of art that you could get as a furry in the fandom, the one that I believe is the most important to obtain for yourself is the furry badge. These simple yet effective art pieces allow for the very thing that we all celebrate in this fandom, calling you by your furry name. Alright, that's been it. Thank you for watching my quick escapade about furry badges. I'll catch you in the next one, but until then, stay wild out there. Peace. Let's take another look at these things.